I think I am one of those people who can look at things a lot of different ways, and I'm not the most adept at it among the forecasters, but that's definitely my type. And so I was a good fit. But I was also driven because I'm acutely aware of the trouble the world is in, and I think as much as they have a dark side, U.S. organizations like IARPA and the intelligence community in general need all the help they can get. We are basically the good guys, and so there's plenty of driving force behind my interest. Well, it's painfully clear that the more the wiser and more thoughtful and rational you are, the better you're going to do. And so I'm afraid, that it's kind of the same people who would do better a lot of different things that require mental effort are the ones that rise to the top in forecasting. I think what's special about forecasting is that if you're a really natural researcher, that can get you quite far. And I just completely admire and am grateful to those of us who are so good at it and who have far-flung connections to decision centers in the world. I'm sort of a free rider in that way. So there are two things that are really important, and so I come from one side of that. I'm a person who was a natural for computer programming, for example, but not a natural for writing or researching. One easy to follow tip is do it every day, and every question that you're forecasting, have a look every day to see if anything has changed. When things do change, significantly, it tends to come as a surprise, and if you missed that day, well, you blew that forecast for that day. My approach is to try to think through causal mechanisms and try to think of all the influential factors that I can think of and try to visualize scenarios and balance probabilities among scenarios, things like that. This is a little different than what I think most of us are led to do by the training we've had, which is, it's not that the training doesn't cover probability, and that's critical, but it's to look at the categories of the questions we're forecasting and try to find parallels in the past and look for rates of occurrence and try to use those rates. I think that's helpful as a starting place, but it's not going to get you a very good score if that's all you do. And I think the difference between sort of phoning it in and getting a good score is understanding the situation as well as you possibly can. And that's what Phil Tetlock has called the inside view as opposed to the outside view. He emphasizes that people neglect the outside view, but I think it's the inside view that really matters to get you exceptional forecasts that actually could give real value. Anyway, that's the inside view. Become comfortable with researching problems, have a great interest in what you're forecasting. Don't hesitate to dig right in to, study something new. Just get into it. don't neglect, if you have any bent at all for statistics and probability, bring it into play. But that's kind of obvious to anyone who has that choice.
Okay.
I guess actually this might come up in your last question. I forget, but part of the muscle you want to strengthen intuitively is the muscle for balancing scenarios against each other and sort of averaging out probabilities intuitively, weighting them properly, things like that. Balancing things against each other intuitively, things that are pointing in opposite directions. This is something you get better at and feel easier about by practicing. It's been huge. And first off, you get exposed to a lot of wonderful people whom you tend to maintain some degree of contact with. I've had a couple of my teammates visit me at my house, one who's from South Africa, the other one's from Spain. It's true they were in Washington for other reasons, but that's an example, and I'm glad to stay in touch with a lot of in fact, there have been others as well from the D.C. area. Anyways, I'm glad to stay in touch with these new friends. That's a big thing. And just as big is there's nothing like reality, focusing on reality and how it works out, and you tried to see the future, and maybe it worked and maybe it didn't, and you sort of mentally record. There's feedback going on it's extremely good feedback for turning you into a more rational person. It makes you a more balanced person, a more rational person, easier to live with, perhaps. I don't know, but it's all good. It's been very rewarding, and this doesn't mean that the forecasters shouldn't also be rewarded in other ways, but this by itself is rewarding, and I'm sure that the others feel much the same.